Texan fans, Jag fans, we meet again. This time, we got a lot to talk about. Biggest matchups, storylines, final predictions.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Texans and Locked On Jaguars listeners to this Thursday episode, crossover episode of the Locked On Texans and Jaguars podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, my man, Tony Wiggins.
You know it. You know it. I'm ready to go, man. You know, we ain't looking too good, but I'm going to take time for these next 30 minutes and try to show off and make it seem like we are doing good.
You're going to show off, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Going to show off a little bit. Listen, guys, today's episode of this crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Before we get into the final predictions, the key matchups, the biggest matchups, the storylines, what I wanted to start today's show off with, my man Tony Wiggins retired recently after cutting hair for over 30 years. 34 years. That's been longer than I've been alive. And I just want to say, from a cultural standpoint, yeah, I see you make that face. From a cultural standpoint, from a respect standpoint, and just knowing you as a man, man, congratulations on retirement. You deserve it. Don't let these Jaguars stress you out and ruin your retirement. But, man, it's good to see you be able to. And I haven't known you for a long time, but the time that I've known you working, talking sports, it's been a blessing to know you. So, man, I just want to throw it out there and congratulate you on retirement.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And barbering was never a stepstone. It was always a destination. And now my destination is here on the Locked On Podcast Network with Locked On Jaguars and Locked On NFL. And I will say it does make me feel good to know that I have the impact on people that I have on you. And we spent a lot of time together at the Senior Bowl. Yeah. And we're going to be brothers forever. You know that. Thank you very much, though.
No problem. Now, you had an impact on me, but not necessarily on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
No.
And the destination that you have for being a barber may not be the destination that they have for being a good franchise right now. So let's talk about the Jags. Biggest storylines for this team so far.
The biggest storylines has been they've been underachieving. And I could say in 2020 or 2021, 4 years ago when Trent Baalke took over this team, but that would almost be unfair because Urban Meyer had a big impact on that first year. So we go 2022, 23, 2023, and 2024. That's enough time when considering that you had 2 number 1 overall picks, you had multiple second-round picks, multiple third-round picks, and all the cap space you could ever imagine having. And they haven't achieved. They've won 9 games 2 years in a row. And while that's admirable because that's something that had not been done in consecutive years forever in this organization, folks are now wondering if these two can actually take them to another level. You know, if you grew up in a church, especially a black church, they say everybody's good for a season, right? And, maybe their season is over, but we're going to obviously continue to let this season progress and see how they go. Doug Peterson has had a history of having his team to look like a chameleon. 1 minute they look like this, the next minute they look like that. Last year, that was bad. They started out 8-3, and they ended up 9-8 and did not make the playoffs. The season prior to that, they were 2-7 and ended up 9-8, and that was very good. The jury's going to be still out on whether or not they can get that done. I have my doubts about it for obvious reasons, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think for you guys, just on the outside looking in, the talent has been there. You mentioned the 2 number 1 overall picks, a lot of money now invested into Trevor Lawrence for the next several years. I do think it's been a disappointment for the league for Trevor Lawrence to not look as good as the expectations were for him coming out of high school, coming out of college at Clemson, and now the last, 19 games, going back to last season, there's been, I think, a true disappointment there for Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback?
There may be a disappointment, but let me explain something to you. There are a lot of people also now pointing out Aiden Hutchinson having 6 sacks in the first couple of weeks and being the number one player in pass rush percentage or whatever that is, right? And Trayvon not being ranked very high with only 2 sacks. Here's the thing that I tell people when you talk about stuff like that. You can't be situational with your arguments. You can't point out the fact that college production told you that Trayvon wasn't as good as Aiden Hutchinson, and then point out the fact that Trevor Lawrence's high school and college production told you he was as good as everybody, and then blame the same person who picked Trevor Lawrence and Trayvon Walker for the same thing. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. It's like that tells you that college production has its place, as well as projection has its place. And you can't get angry with a GM who picks Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall for the same reasons that you get angry that that same GM picked Trayvon Walker and didn't pick Agent Hutch. I think you just have to watch the tape, watch the game. And here's the most important part. I always say players don't make organizations bad. Bad players don't make good organizations bad. Good players can be ruined by bad organizations. The proof is in the pudding. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they've been a bad organization. So therefore, you can't really say that either one of these guys' future or their production is just based on themselves and what was supposed to be meant for them. Maybe the organization has a lot to do with it.
Are we doing Texas storylines right now too? We're gonna talk some Texans in this first segment.
No, we can do that in the second segment.
Okay, you saw y'all. So another storyline that I wanted to ask you about for our fans, listeners, and viewers out there for the Houston Texans is, Brian Thomas. He's not Malik Neighbors. He's not, Romo Duzier, but he's a damn good receiver for you guys. And I think with the departure of Calvin, really a good rookie receiver to step in and try to fill some of that, vacancy. What have you guys been seeing out of him that Texan fans should be worried about, concerned about, or just may need to be put on notice about?
Brian Thomas Jr. is a big play superstar, and I think he can do a lot more than that. But it goes back to just what I was just saying. The bottom line is you can't really see how good he is unless you really watch the game and watch the tape. You can't tell how good he is based on the results because the Jaguars' problem is their offensive line, and that doesn't bode well for them against Houston. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. Their offensive line has been a problem. If Trevor Lawrence can't have the time to throw the ball and Brian Thomas Jr. is running these deeper routes that would allow him to really show off his ability, that's not a Brian Thomas Jr. fault. Brian Thomas Jr. has been better than advertised. And I think right now, along with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, ahead of Romo Dunze, I think Brian Thomas Jr. right now is the 3rd best wide receiver in that draft.
On the other side of the break, we got some Texans talk for you Jaguar fans out there. Please don't flood our comments. We don't want no smoke because I know if y'all smoke us out now, y'all may get smoked out of the NRG Stadium come Sunday. So more Texans Jaguar talks on the other side of the break. And Texan fans, if you have not had the opportunity to get your tickets, please do so now on the Game Time app. They make buying tickets for your next sporting event, concert event, no matter what event it is. If they have tickets, Game Time makes it easier for you to buy tickets for that event. They also have a new Game Time feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event easier. They filter out all of the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And also, by the way, if you buy a ticket and something happens, you cannot make the event, Game Time has your purchase covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first time purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
All right, segment 2 here. Locked on Jaguars, Locked on Texans crossover. My man John Hickman stepping in. your boy Cody was scared to show up today, right?
Man.
Yeah, I always like messing with both of y'all. I'm used to Cody Davis and John Hickman, but I'll whoop y'all one at a time. It don't even matter, even though my team is 0-3.
Yeah, y'all 0-3 right now, man. I don't know if y'all can handle both of us right now.
Yeah, I would have felt a lot better or a lot worse if y'all had won last week. You know what I'm saying? But y'all lost too and didn't look good doing it. But seriously, on a serious note, the Texans are one of the most talented teams in the National Football League. C.J. Stroud is, without argument, one of the top 7 quarterbacks in the league. People question Trevor Lawrence. Nobody's questioning C.J. Stroud because they don't have to, because he has performed at a very, very high level and carried himself in a certain way. How disappointed were you though last week with the loss and the way that they lost?
I think it was more so in the way that they lost compared to that they lost. I was very disappointed because coming into this season, the talk for the Houston Texans around the local media, national media, I'm sure you've seen it nationally, was this offense. You added Stephon, Dalton Schultz come back. Nico Collins is a what type of risk? Is he top 5, top 10? Tank Dell. So Joe Mixon as well. All of the additions, and to go out there, not only Sunday, but going back to the last 6 quarters of Texans football offensively, not being able to score touchdowns, put up touchdowns, really score points. It's been frustrating to watch simply because I think there's a quick fix that can be made to it, but we've yet to see it. And this goes back dating to a little bit of what we saw again against the Chicago Bear team. Offensively, they have been just very inconsistent. And if you can't run the ball here in Houston, if Bobby Slowick is not able to establish the run, then this offense has had issues. First game, 200 yards on the ground, 29 points. Second game, 73, 75, 19 points. Third game against the Vikings, with everything that the Vikings throw at you, including the kitchen sink and a fryer, 38 yards, 7 points. So he wants to establish that ball, establish the run to get the offense going. And when he can't follow and stick to that script, he doesn't improvise well, as my man Brandon K. Scott put it. He's not a good counter puncher. And that has hurt the Houston Texans offense.
Now, Slowick is a guy that people consider a head coaching candidate. I mean, a serious head coaching candidate. There's some people in Jacksonville that are sitting there saying, that's what we want. We want Bobby Slowick. But it's interesting for me to hear, and I want Jaguar fans to hear, that you said that if things don't go the way he wants them to go, like basically with Joe Mixon being out, that he doesn't have a counterpunch. Am I correct? Is that what you're saying?
From what I've seen, yes. I think the best version of Bobby Slowick has been CJ go win us the game. Tampa Bay last year, Cincinnati last year. Look at the playoff performance last year. Look at the Colts game to close out the year last year. Look at the first game against you guys last year. CJ, go do your thing. And I don't think that should be a Bobby Slowick attachment per se, because I feel like when you have that quarterback, sometimes you got to let that quarterback. He's from that Shanahan tree. They want to establish the run. They want to build big plays off of play action. And if you take that away, if you take the run away, well, who's going to respect the play action? And what I saw against the Minnesota Vikings guys was, Brian Flores is sending everything at you. Your offensive line is struggling right now. You know that they're going to drop back in cover 2. I think they run cover 2 in Minnesota higher than anybody else in the league, if not one of their top 3 in the league. And at no point, again, no counterpunch. No, let's use a screen to pick up some positive yards. No short routes. I saw so many long concept routes, and I'm thinking to myself, hey, even if it is 2nd and 12, you're going to need time to build that route out, and you ain't going to get it right now because they're throwing everything at you. And at no point did I see a quick slant, stick route. I didn't see that from him. And that's what worries me about Bobby Slowick is if somebody can punch you in the mouth first, how are you going to respond? And at times, for this team to be the best team that we believe that they can be for the last 6 quarters, he has not responded well.
Defensively, a lot of high draft picks, with Derek Stingley, Will Anderson, and then resources used on Daniil Hunter and all of the investment in the linebackers that they have. How have they played defensively? And what do you think, if anything, that they need to do in order to improve?
I think defensively they've been great. I know we just saw the 30 burger put on them, 14 in that first quarter. The first 7 points, Minnesota, I think, were already on the 25-yard line because of the interception off a tip pass, so they was in great field position. Once Minnesota goes up 14 points, punt, punt, punt. 3 drives to force them out, no points. Houston could put up no points. And so you saw throughout the rest of the game, the defense just on the field way more. And then, we allow more points. But I think defensively they've been good. Number 4 right now in total sacks in the NFL. They've been able to create turnovers, which is what this team wants to do. I think for Houston, they could utilize maybe because DeMeco Ryans, aside from the Chicago Bears game and maybe a couple of games last year, he doesn't necessarily live off blitzing teams. He likes to win with his guys up front, and he has the guys to do that. A pleasant surprise has really been Mario Edwards. 2 sacks for this team. And so maybe being able to dial up more pressure on some of these quarterbacks that right now I think a good bulk of the NFL quarterbacks are just not smart quarterbacks in terms of being able to read on the fly. I think that's an issue that we're starting to see more and more, starting at the high school level, but that's another conversation. So I think maybe that could be something that they can utilize, just dialing up more blitzes and stunts to get more pressure on these quarterbacks. A lot of bad offensive lines, including, not to be funny, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the inconsistency with the secondary in terms of Jimmy Ward out there. He's getting old. He is old, no disrespect, but his last great season, he played nickel. Jalen Petrie is playing some of the best nickel in the NFL through 3 weeks. You're not going to replace him to help a older player that you love and respect. So I do think there is room for Houston to kind of find ways to limit him being attacked for some of those big plays down the field, dating back to the Coast game. But other than that, I mean, defensively, I think they're a good bunch, a great bunch, actually.
Before we get to segment 3, where we talk about the keys of this particular game, I've been seeing a lot of smoke coming from the Houston area about Laramie Tunsil. Are people not happy with this performance? And I say that because I know Laramie, and he played with my godson on AAU basketball. Lake City is about an hour and 15 minutes away from Jacksonville. So what's going on with him? He was considered the top 3 or 4 offensive tackle in the league, and he wasn't number 3 or 4.
How patient have you guys been with the Jacksonville front office?
Very patient.
Very patient. And this year feels like, you know what? That patience is just out the door now, right?
With Laramie?
No, with you guys.
All right, right.
So with Laramie, is he a top tackle talent-wise? Absolutely. But the penalties, the false starts, through 3 weeks, you have 11. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. You are a captain, and it doesn't seem like the effort from Laramie is always there. Through 3 weeks, there's been times where you can go back, you can kind of nitpick it, right? We can always nitpick a player and a play and the whole nine. But going back to this Minnesota game, offensive line is getting beat. Laramie, you're at the second level. Cam Akers just spent twice to try to make some positive yards. He could potentially get more if you just do your backside block assignment right. Move a body out the way. At 6'6", 6'7", 300, whatever, however big you are, whatever your weight, you should be able to move those guys out the way. But yet and still, when we cut the tape on, this ain't no tic-tac play. This ain't no nitpick play. You just completely whiff.
Yeah.
You've already caused penalties.
Yeah.
You already have been a part of Houston not being able to pick up some of these first downs. And when they do pick them up, hey, it's called back because of a Laramie Tunsil penalty. The Houston Texans have 35 yards, 2 first downs that were taken away from them because of a Laramie Tunsil penalty. And so the least you can do is when it's time to get dirty and give that extra effort, all things considered, from their game, you can do it. And so when people don't see it, And it's not only that play, but it's this play, and it's this series, and it's this drive, and it's this half. Hey, man, people are pissed. The Texans allocate the most money to their offensive line. You're a captain. You are the highest paid player on this team. And for people to constantly see that type of effort and in year, whatever it is, still having these false start issues, it becomes frustrating. And I think the biggest part about it is there's real expectations behind this team now. In 2020, COVID year, when they only won 4 games, there wasn't no effort, wasn't no expectations. 21, no expectations. 22, no expectations. Really wasn't expectations until the second half of last year.
Right.
But now there's expectations for the first time since 2019 coming to the season, and that type of stuff is just unacceptable.
I understand. I totally understand the expectations, and to whom much is given, much is required. We give y'all something every day here on Locked On Texas and Locked On Jaguars. Y'all require a third segment. We're going to get to that, and we're going to talk about predictions and final score in segment number 3 here on the crossover, Locked On Texas and Locked On Jaguars.
Before we get to that, we got to give y'all something else, a little treat from the Locked On family. If this is your first time thinking about using DoorDash, if you have never used it before, here's an incentive. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24. That's LOCKED FALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol.
John, let me bring us back here, man. We're going to get back into our crossover here in just a second, but I have to let you know that the crossover edition of Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Texans is presented by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5.
It's a $45 come up. Who don't like that? I love it. I like it. And I also like the Houston Texans chances Sunday. I'll be at the NRG Stadium. I think that my presence there will be graceful, and it'll be a blessed afternoon. And I think Houston will get it going offensively. I watched the game, some of the game against the Bills for you guys.
Yeah.
And I came away from the game thinking to myself, well, the Jags struggle with, I thought, mesh routes, crossing routes. And I thought that with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, those are 2 receivers that I think can thrive in that role as a receiver. I think Houston will get the ball rolling offensively by utilizing their playmaker wide receivers. And do I think they're going to put up, what was it, 47, 40?
Yeah, 47. Go ahead. It was 47. They dropped the 47 burger. Go ahead.
15, or 40, or 45, or 47. Do. But I think Houston,
yeah.
I think Houston going to put up some points Sunday. I think this is one of those games that at the end of the year, they're going to look back and say, man, we needed this game to get our communication down with our offensive line so they can be able to learn, cut out these false starts. What's your assignment on a stunt, and give that time to CJ so he can sit back there in the pocket comfortably, because he's been pressured a lot this year, which is not ideal, to give him time to deliver some of these beautiful balls that he normally does to Nico, to Stephon, to Tank, and they'll be able to get the ball rolling. I think Houston will put up about 28 points on you guys.
All right, so they're not going to drop a 40 burger. So the thing is with this game is I'm going to pick Houston to win the game because I'm not an idiot, right? The Jaguars aren't playing well. They haven't really shown, outside of the first 3 quarters against Miami in week 1, they haven't really shown what they say they want to be. So what I will tell you is this is exactly the kind of game where guys like that, and I know a lot of them in that locker room, and I know that coaching staff, this is exactly the kind of game where they just step up and go, not today. But I don't think it'll be good enough, and I don't believe in moral victories. However, I do believe the Jaguars probably played their best game of the season and then lose a very close game. I think they're motivated. I think they realize that there's a lot that people are talking about maybe coaches, and I ain't gonna talk about people, that people need to be fired and there needs to be a change and all of that stuff. But the bottom line is the way they're yoked, the way they're built. If you can't run the ball and they don't have a threat of you running the ball, they can really mix and match things. Now they're a little bit banged up in the secondary, and their linebacker Foy,
he's out.
Yeah, Foy Olubakan, he's out with plantar fasciitis, so that's a bit of a challenge. This is about situational football, though. Who can put who in certain situations and allow what you want to do to basically impose your will on this game? I think because of that, it's going to be very, very close. I think Trevor Lawrence, one of the best games I ever seen was when people were doubting him and they were talking about C.J. Stroud. And they came to Houston last year, and Trevor Lawrence played the game of his life.
Yeah, he did.
I really do believe that opportunities like that do exist. I think it's a close game. I think Houston's probably going to win 28-24. However, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars find a way to pull it out.
I do want to say this. We can never overlook division games.
No.
That was a point of mine going into the Indianapolis Colts game. Like, you can never overlook a division game. You see those guys twice a year. And for a good amount of those players, they see the same team in the 3-year span 6 times. So they know a team. They know the DNA of a team. They know what can kind of make a team play well and what to do to take away that team's ability to play well. So I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I'm not looking for a blowout. One of our listeners said the Texans should curb stomp the Jags. I'm not looking for that. No. What I am looking for is an offensive performance where we can be comfortable with and proud of after the game. And I'm going to say this. I do think after Sunday's game, the Texans should perform so well that, it should be a coaching change. If Doug Peterson keeps his job off beating the Houston Texans, we got a problem.
Right.
So I hate to say be fired and all of that because men have families to provide for.
Right.
So I don't want to necessarily say he should be fired, but I mean, the Texans should win this game, and he should not be there after Tuesday.
Hey, if they play well, he won't get fired. In fact, you have to think, what if they fire him, what are they going to do? They're going to promote Ryan Nielsen, the defensive coordinator, the head coach, and make Mike McCoy the quarterback coach. Because if Doug gets fired, they're going to fire Press Taylor too. And the thing is Press Taylor's the offensive coordinator. So the thing is I do think that Shad has been slow to fire in the past. I do believe that there's a little bit of a sentiment that if things get worse, that he will make a decision that Doug has to go, but that decision doesn't have to coincide with it actually happening right now. Sometimes the best thing to do is just let things continue to play out the way they are. But I think the Jaguars really, really do make a good showing of themselves this week, and they'll have a chance to win it late. I did predict that they wouldn't be blown out in any game that they play this year, and that has already been debunked by Buffalo, who beat them by 37. So we'll see. But I think the Jaguars show up, play better, but still fall short.
Thank you guys for watching this crossover episode of the Locked On Texans and Locked On Jaguars podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Please be sure that you subscribe, like, and comment to both of the podcasts on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts.